On this episode of Intent Topics, we're going to talk about a more evolved concept of outbound sales. Logan, what's up, bro?
What's cracking, dude?
Oh, not a lot. Just plugging away here. So, today I want to talk about outbound sales, all right? Yep. And I want to talk about why we need to be okay with a more evolved concept of outbound sales, all right? And I feel like we need to merge inbound with the old school, for better or for worse, called cold calling. And I would like to discuss this evolution with you today.
Sure. Yeah, great. Absolutely. Right. It's like my favorite thing to talk about.
I know. So, I guess, talk to me about how you think things have evolved over time.
Yeah. So I think the important thing to realize about the sort of like inbound, outbound, there seems to be the like a divide between the two. And the important thing is, outbound relies on content as much as inbound does in 2019, moving into 2020. So it's very important that we are delivering information to our prospects. What we have seen is a lot of the research that is going on is not happening on the business that, that the customer is ultimately going to transact with. It's not happening on their website, right? So the idea is they're going to review sites. They're going to places to get information that are not the end user or the end kind of like the company that's pumping out blog articles and all that kind of stuff. So I think, I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense here, but we need to deploy content to meet it at the where the prospect is, as opposed to letting the prospect come to us. But that doesn't mean we're disrupting the prospect I think like disrupt in like the HubSpot language. It's like, let them come to you and then have the conversation you want to have with them.
Yeah. Almost like interrupt. Right. And so a couple things to that. So like cold calling in its old form is basically like you have a list of phone numbers, right? So that's gone. That's like not to be ever called the same thing again, right? It's out. It's out. But it's gone. It's like cars without seatbelts, right? But the one thing that's changed a ton is the ability to put content in front of someone is at a completely different juncture than it ever was, right? So if you were in the late 60s or 70s, call it cold calling, all you had for content was what you said if you got that person on the line, right? And so there's this whole concept with outbound that I think goes so seamlessly with the inbound, which is the content in front of the right person, right? And the distinction is reaching out and grabbing that person and pulling them in, or having them find you, right? That seems to me like the clear distinction, right?
So absolutely. So if we look at like intent data, there's definitely like a curve. There's an amount of research and content consumption that's being thrown off. I just did a video on this. So like a marketing qualified lead and an early intent surge are kind of the same thing, right? So we can see where that person is in that. And when I say same thing, it's like in terms of their research cycle, their buying process. So the idea is, regardless of if they are interacting with your website, they are consuming content somewhere. Your job is to understand how to get the content in front of that person.
Yeah. In fact, I saw the statistic today that 67% of B2B sales, the prospect has already been researching that by the time they speak to a salesperson.
Yeah, exactly. We saw that happen in the car business, right? So early, I think the analogy would be in the car business. Before like Auto Trader, Kelley Blue Book, etc., you had the average was like 6.3 dealerships visited before somebody makes a purchase.
Wow.
Now it's 1.2.
Wow. Really?
So think about that. Like the prospect in that case is doing all the research on Kelley Blue Book, Auto Trader. They're all owned by the same company, which is nuts, right?
Right.
Cars.com, and they're going to the manufacturer's sites, and they might be shopping all these different websites.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get to the store, like, you have to close them.
Yeah. And what you're saying is the research is done. Like where back in the day, it used to be the shopping process, like coming, checking out the cars, seeing the different options, collecting all the pamphlets or whatever you call those things, right? And then probably walking away, making a decision. Now somebody comes in probably knowing a shocking amount about what they want and what they can get. Right. And so to bring it back to this kind of inbound marketing thing, where in the late, call it like 2011, 2012, 2013, it was like, things like TiVo, caller ID, spam filters, and email has killed outbound sales for effectively cold calling, right? On the flip side, the ability to research got that much better too. And if you're savvy as a salesperson, and I think this is the main point of this talk, is those tools are just as powerful as the tools created to shut all this stuff off, right?
Yeah. So even things like, Apple with their voicemail transcription made voicemails into a pseudo kind of email or a text message, right?
Totally.
So it's how we're using the tools needs to be to get content in front of somebody in a conversational manner, right? So not like download my ebook, stop it, let me know and I'll shoot it over to you if you really want to read an ebook. But who the hell wants to read an ebook, right? That
has become like the new flavor of the used car salesman, right? Like, what do I have to say to get you to buy this car today? That's now like, if you hear those pushy messages, like in the, here's my ebook or something.
Right. Exactly.
Like, oh my God, that's actually become outdated. And
yeah. It's like every single like lead gen ad on Facebook is download an ebook from a digital marketing company. So I think it really comes down to, are we getting the right information in front of the right person? And that's where things like data come in. So intent data, technographic data, even just simple firmographic data, like who are you talking to? So if we can take that and we can shape the content that we're putting in front of somebody, that is so powerful. The other thing is, and this needs to be part of this discussion, is like, so many people talk about how outbound or like cold calling, it's disruptive, and they're scared of being disruptive, right? So I hear it a lot. I don't want to push the customer too much. I don't want to, or the prospect, or I don't want to, I'm going to pester them too much, all this kind of stuff. Okay. So let's talk about the rationalization here. In a research process, if as a salesperson, you do not believe that you are more knowledgeable than the guy you're competing against, or
you're truly helping someone,
truly helping somebody. So if your expert positioning, right, internally is not high, then it gets very hard to do this. But if your expert positioning is, hey, listen, I can truly provide you value, I know more than the next guy, let me help you consolidate this in a very real way, like a very true way. You are not lying or skewing data, and you're helping somebody get that research done. That is very valuable, because I can tell you, if you type in a Google search of the product or service that you're selling, like, let's talk about it. So if you just type in your company's name, if say you're a SaaS company, your company's name, or if you're not in a SaaS company, type in a software as a service that maybe you use or you've heard of. If you type that in, then on the first 3 or 4 listings on Google, they will be ads. What are those ads? Those ads are competitors saying, I'm better than this person because. Then underneath of that, it's going to be a G2 crowd or some sort of review site about that software,
or
and then
maybe a Wikipedia article.
Yeah, exactly. And then on G2, right? That software's competitor might be buying ads on that page that are saying X, Y, and Z about how they're better than them. So if the salesperson doesn't believe they're doing a service to the prospect by simplifying the enormous amount of information overload that the prospect will be encountering, then they shouldn't be selling. So that is the power of outbound. Simplify things for prospects. And that's why we talk about conversational messaging, good context, concise messaging, etc.
Being engaging, educational, entertaining, even,
Yeah, being conversational. Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you how many people it's like, hold on, I got to get my mind around this. I got to, figure, I need time to think about it, right? Time to think about it is like you're either unsold on something or there's just so much information that you truly do need to organize that information in your head. And so if you can provide those frameworks, if you can provide that valuable information, you will start to win more deals. And sitting there waiting for it on the inbound side doesn't work. I don't think it ever has. I think the content that is being created should never go away, because that's content that should be, if it's valuable, that should be getting in front of the prospect.
Yeah. And then kind of on this same thread, I'm trying to pull up, but there was a screenshot I sent you the other day that was a comparison of outbound prospecting versus inbound prospecting, right? And this diagram was very quick to call outbound prospecting, anything outbound prospecting, cold calling, and define it as unsolicited calls to sell a product or service, right? And they called inbound prospecting warm emails to explore a relationship with a lead who has already expressed familiarity with your product or service. I think this is completely inaccurate, right? Because for starters, you're not necessarily prospecting in the way that you're prospecting when you're out doing outreach, because this person's filled out a form on your website, right? They've already come to you, right? I'm saying that outbound prospecting, and we can stop calling it cold calling, because you're right, it's not cold calling. It is reaching out to people to bring them in, to then give them that information that, data that we have access to as salespeople could suggest that this person's like researching this topic, right? And it's actually not unsolicited, right? It's not a coincidence when we reach out to someone via email or call or whatever, and they say, oh, as a matter of fact, I just happen to be researching. It's like, we know, right? But we're still reaching out, right? And I think there's this huge gap between the field of dreams, if we build it, they will come concept of inbound and inbound sales by these kind of definitions, right? And this reaching out and nudging someone and it's saying, I'm here, not yelling at them, not the whole megaphone analogy that they use when we were talking about how this was a paradigm shift to inbound, but still, hey, kind of like the in the retail store, hey, I'm here. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to browse, right? And that's like an unassuming way to say, hey, I know everything about everything in the store. Happy to help you if you want it.
Right. And that's exactly. Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, no, I'm kind of ranting, but what kicked off this topic was I was very frustrated that this positioning of outbound prospecting, which is what we do, had this negative connotation. It really basically says reaching out to people who don't want to hear from you and interrupting them, right?
Yeah.
And this whole inbound prospecting thing being like, and here to save the day, we're going to do these like warm emails to explore a relationship with a lead that's filled out a form. That's not the same thing at all. It's not prospecting. It's lead follow up. It's like it's to me it's just a different like part of the altogether funnel in general. right? And
right.
So
yeah. So yeah. I think they're different. They're different. Inbound wants to be different than outbound, right? Because inbound is easy. It's a message that was made to sell the product, like HubSpot, right? Mm-hmm. Really. And then everybody else jumped on the bandwagon. So it's easy to say, hey, listen, cold outreach makes you uncomfortable, right? Yeah, it makes me uncomfortable. Okay, great. Well, guess what? You don't have to do it. I'm going to let you off the hook. All right, great. That's awesome. So that was a sales tool. So everybody who believes in it has been sold. People, they've been sold. You just got sold if that's what you believe in. People who do outbound really well, right? They know, like outbound sales, they know that they need that content. They need to be valuable. That's the way they every time they touch something, whether it's an email, phone call, etc., they need to be valuable. And that's where like the outbound people, I think, have thrived since the onslaught of inbound because, their competition's gotten a lot less because there's a lot of people sitting around.
Yeah. I've told this story at one of these podcasts, but back when I was Great Island Technologies, which is the agency I created years ago, I hired a sales rep. And at the time, there was this thing called Partner Match, and you'd be a member of this thing at HubSpot where if a customer came on to HubSpot and they needed something, they'd fill out this form, and this email would go to all the partners that were enrolled in receiving this email. And we started landing a bunch of business. And at one point, we started asking people, hey, like, how did you go with us? And they said, well, everyone just emailed us. You're the only person that called us. and it was like, at that time, that's 2012, right? At that time, everyone was hiding behind forms. Everyone thought that was it. Like you get the form submission and the rest was either just going to happen. Like there's like this gap between form submission and contract or signed deal or whatever. Right. And my point here is we just learned that picking up the phone was a big deal. So maybe this whole thing all boils down to like pick up the phone, freaking talk to people. Right. Mm-hmm. And maybe it that's just lending in itself to the merit of this whole conversational marketing category that's been created by the guys at Drift, guys and girls at Drift. And I don't know, but that's like a pretty big distinction for me. Maybe the difference is calling versus just emailing, right? Or just reaching out to specific people and starting conversations. I'd actually like to revise it. Start the conversation. However, whatever medium it is, doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
But start the conversation is
channel doesn't matter. People need to stop talking about the channel, like whether it's phone, email, outreach, etc. Yeah. It's got to be agnostic. It's what works because phone works in some.
It's like all the things, right? It's like going to the doctor. Like, yeah, I got this thing, and they're quick to be like, oh, it's just, no, your body's this holistic creature. So we have this person's on. Let's just like talk through a scenario. This person's researching a thing. They're observing a company or a product on social media of some sort. They've been through the website. There's probably opinions of colleagues from trade conversations, whether it's forums or trade shows or just people know each other, and a phone call, a few emails, and maybe some chat on a website, maybe multiple websites, right? There's no one channel. The channel is wasn't there a word for the omni-channel marketing? Yeah. Omni-channel. That was like the Twilio. That's actually part of our kind of like origin story is how we got going is monitoring the conversations across all channels, right?
Yep.
So anyways, I'm just backing you up on the concept of it's not just phone, it's not just email. It has nothing to do with that. Those are the wrong kind of axes to be working on.
Right. Exactly. And they need to be integrated. It's not just like hit somebody on 3 different channels. It's how are they all interacting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's why I'm a big proponent of SalesLoft. They do a very good job at sort of integrating everything. So this is a good one, man. I love to hear you go off. It's nice to hear you go off and not me go off.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to be negative about it, but I do have this real kind of like chip on my shoulder about how the inbound versus outbound thing has been positioned. And it's kind of like back to my original decision to come join Union Resolute was I didn't believe that what we were doing or what Union was doing prior to my showing up even worked. I was that kind of programmed. And now I've swung so far to the other side where I don't know. I just like, I've sat on the sidelines and I've seen things change, but the things aren't talked about like apples to apples anymore. You know, like when inbound, the concept of inbound was made a concept, a thing. HubSpot was like basically an SEO tool, blogging, form submission, or, you know, the ability to receive a form submission. And that's what inbound turned into. And then it's turned into like this huge thing where actually like you could use HubSpot for very much only outbound activity all day long. And it's almost like the inbound concept's made legacy, but it's still here, right? Because it's a conference with 30,000 people and a lot of stuff has been built around this concept. And I just think that it's more than it's just not as simple as in versus out. Just like it's not as simple as which channel, warm, cold, right? And so like to bring it back to my original point of what I want to talk about here is as much as consumers are able to turn all these things off, right? And tune off the noise and own their incoming communications. Savvy marketers, I'm going to say marketers, not just salespeople, have the ability now with these tools created on the internet to reach people in much better ways and engage with them successfully. Right. And I'm just picturing the dude in a brown suit with a shitty tie and a phone book sitting at his desk in the 70s, probably smoking indoors, cold calling. And I think that's what people latch on to what they think of it as today. And it's just not that. It's super productive and it works. And we have tools available to us to make it. So there's no such thing as cold calling. It's just outreach. It's just prospecting, you know? Right.
Exactly.
And I find these tools fascinating. I find the data available to us insane. And the way that we can use it and create messaging, it's just insane. I don't know. I clearly could talk about it all day long.
Yeah, dude. I love it.
I'm also caffeinated. So I could wrap this up for you. What do you say?
Cool. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right, man. Well, I'm Chris Battis.
And I'm Logan Kelly. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please give us a 5-star rating on whatever podcast app you listen on. We will see you next time.
All right. Take care.